Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's me, it's Clayton, and I just got out of seeing One Piece Gold. And let me just tell you, if you're a fan of One Piece, this movie is amazing. It so perfectly captures the look, the feel, and the overall excitement of the show. It's almost like it's almost like the director wanted to make the best One Piece film possible with a surprisingly good message thrown in and actually made it that way. So basically, if you're a fan of the anime, it is a must-watch. But let's get to the story, shall we? Our favorite Straw Hat pirates, led by Monkey D. Luffy, stumble across a ship called Grand Tesoro, which is essentially what if Las Vegas was on a ship. As such, it is a huge entertainment complex filled with casinos and hotels, and it's all run by a greedy man named Guild Tesoro, played by Keith Silverstein. Once the crew ends up in Grand Tesoro, they're initially treated well by everyone around them, but once they realize that their greed and luck get the better of them, they end up having to pay off a massive debt while also having to save Roronoa Zoro, played by Christopher Sabat, from Mr. Guild Tesoro. So the whole film revolves around the Straw Hat Pirates having to save Roronoa Zoro, while also trying to help out the civilians who are trapped in this huge city due to Guild Tesoro controlling all the gold in the city, which means he controls everyone's lives. So yeah, the social commentary on this film couldn't be stronger if they tried, considering it's a city where the rich get richer and the poor suffer because of it. Sort of like our modern day society, really. And Guild Tesoro, played by Keith Silverstein, might seem generic and stereotypical as a villain at first, but he revels in it, and revels in how freaking despicable he is, and it gives him sort of an ironic depth even before we get to his backstory. But what really makes the film work are all the character interactions. The fact that these characters are recreated so well for this film, and the fact that you love them as much as you did in the TV show. Colleen Clickenbeard returns as Luffy, and she's just as goofy as you'd expect. Well, she's goofy as Monkey D. Luffy. Christopher Sabat is just as much of a badass as you'd expect from Roronoa Zoro. Lucy Christian is just as memorable and quirky as Nami, and the list goes on and on and on. Even some of the lesser characters like Tony Chopper and Brooke get some great moments. Granted, some characters are focused on more than others, just like the TV show, but when you have a cast of such a large cast of characters, some are gonna feel left out. But thankfully, the new characters who are introduced in this film are fun as well, even if they are one-offs. I already talked about Guild Tesoro, but one of his generals, Baccarat, played by Amber Lee Connors, also stuck out to me. Granted, she does play a typical femme fatale for the most part, but Amber Lee Connors really gets into the role, and she really happens to come up with a voice for Baccarat that not only fits her perfectly, but is totally different from her voice as Nozomi Kaminashi from Keijo. I gotta admit, she's got talent, and it's a role like this that makes me think, holy cow, Amber Lee Connors is going to be the next big star when it comes to Funimation's actress lineup. The animation of the film, as you'd expect, is absolutely stellar. There are a few still shots thrown in, but you can tell they were mainly there to make up for the fact that the action scenes are animated beautifully. They're flashy, they're full of passion. All of the main characters get at least one or two great moves in every single action sequence. Heck, the one at the beginning and the one at the end are practically worth the price of admission on their own. And the animation throughout the film happens to fit both the slapstick comedy and the action that One Piece usually goes for. Not only that, but it does... The reason the animation works is because even though it's always on and it's always moving, it still slows down at a couple of points for the emotional moments. It's sort of like how I feel about Hotel Transylvania's animation style. It's always moving, it's always high speed, except for the moments when it needs to slow down. Now, great action, great animation, great characters, all of those would make this a great One Piece film as is. But the fact that the film's message is all about how greed can overtake a person, and the fact that Guild to Zoro is the perfect example of how to get that message across, really makes this film hit home. Not that, granted, they do hammer the message in a bit too much in the film, but given how the series is already ridiculous and it already has corny and cheesy moments, I just sort of accepted it as part of how the film was written, considering that anyone who's watched One Piece knows that it's absolutely ridiculous in every single way, and with a lot of the stuff in their universes, you just gotta accept it. Like how I'm not questioning how there are snails that can somehow act as security cameras. It just seems like something this crazy world would create. It's that sort of thing. So, overall, it's a fast-paced, fun adventure that any One Piece fan will love. They will eat it up, watch it over and over, and love it forever. Now, when it comes to other anime fans, though, that'll be a bit of a different story. This is a One Piece film through and through, and I know a lot of people don't like One Piece. But if you're okay with the fact that it's a One Piece film, and if you're okay with the premise that I just told you about, then you'll enjoy it. But if you hate One Piece and everything having to do with it, then you're not going to like this film. So I'll give One Piece Gold an 8.5 out of 10. It's a very fast, very fun adventure, and it makes you want to go on a swashbuckling, thieving adventure with Monkey D. Luffy and all his pals. See you next time.